The trial of a woman accused of Victoria's mushroom deaths has heard she used a fake cancer diagnosis to get guests to her house on the day of the fatal lunch. Prosecutors allege Erin Patterson murdered her former in-laws and mother-in-law's sister with beef Wellington laced with poisonous mushrooms.
Erin Patterson served up what the Crown claims was a lethal meal at her home in eastern Victoria containing poisonous death cap mushrooms. Nanette Rogers SC told the court the 50-year-old invited Gail and Don Patterson, as well as Heather and Ian Wilkinson, for lunch to discuss a serious medical issue. Her 4 guests arrived at her Leongatha home on the 29th of July 2023. The Supreme Court jury was told she served Heather and Ian Wilkinson and Don and Gail Patterson individual beef Wellingtons with mashed potato and greens, each on a large grey dinner plate. The prosecution says she ate her meal off a different, small, tan-coloured plate. After the meal, Patterson told her guests she had cancer, but it's the prosecution case that the accused had not been diagnosed with cancer prior to the lunch. Her claim in this regard was deliberately false. The accused used the false claim that she had serious medical issues to ensure and to explain why the children would not be present at the lunch. After all 4 guests became extremely ill, Patterson was also called to hospital for a checkup along with her children, who she said had been given some of the leftovers but without mushrooms. But Patterson refused to be treated by doctors. The prosecution says that's because she was faking her symptoms. In summing up, Nanette Rogers SC told the jurors that Patterson deliberately poisoned her guests with murderous intent. She told the jury that motive did not need to be proven and that jurors had to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt of what she's accused of and not why she did it. In response, defence lawyer Colin Mandy told the jurors she did not intend to cause any harm to people on that day. It was a tragedy and a terrible accident. She is innocent. Patterson has pleaded not guilty to 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. For a 3rd day in the witness box, Erin Patterson was taken through the events leading up to the July 2023 lunch and the days after. The 50-year-old told the jury she disposed of her food dehydrator on the morning she was discharged from hospital. "I took the dehydrator to the tip. Why did you do that? Child protection were coming to my house. I was scared they would blame me for it." "Blame you for?" "Making everyone sick, and I was scared they would take the children." Patterson also told the jury about a conversation she had with estranged husband Simon after Child Protection spoke with them. "He said to me, 'Is that how you poisoned my parents, using that dehydrator?' And what did you say?" "I said, 'Of course I didn't.'" Patterson also gave a detailed description of how she prepared the beef Wellington lunch. The court has previously heard the 50-year-old had a long struggle with food and would often binge eat. She described how she ate the leftover cake Gail Patterson brought to the lunch. "I had a piece of cake and then another and another. After that, what happened? I felt sick. I felt overfull, so I went to the toilet and brought it back up again." She told the court she was planning on having gastric bypass surgery but didn't want to tell anyone, so she let her guests believe she was dealing with a cancer diagnosis. "I led them to believe I might be needing some treatment in regards to ovarian cancer in the coming weeks and months. They all showed a lot of compassion about that." Asked why she lied, she replied, "I was really embarrassed. I was ashamed. I didn't want to tell anybody, but I shouldn't have lied to them." She also conceded that mushrooms she may have foraged could have been in a Tupperware container she had in her pantry and then used in the meal. "Now, what do you think might have been in that container? Now, I think there was the possibility there was foraged mushrooms in there too." Patterson explained today that she had told the child protection officer that she was going to change her phone number because she was worried about Simon's behaviour towards her as well as the allegations he'd made. She said she was concerned for her security and didn't want him contacting her anymore. The trial continues. Gloria Kleisch, SBS World News.
Erin Patterson gave a brief glimpse to the sky before being escorted inside Victoria's Supreme Court. After a 10-week murder trial in the Gippsland town of Morwell, she today faced family of her victims as a convicted murderer. The first to give his statement, Ian Wilkinson, the sole survivor of the beef Wellington lunch Patterson served at her Leongatha home in July 2023. His voice shaking from the very start as he spoke of his late wife, Heather, describing her as a delightful person who loved sharing life with others. Together, we shared a life as a team and we delighted in each other's company. The silence in our home is a daily reminder. It's a truly horrible thought to live with, that somebody could decide to take her life. Mr. Wilkinson pausing halfway through his statement, lifting his glasses to wipe away tears and take a drink of water as his hands shook uncontrollably. He then paid tribute to friends Don and Gail Patterson before the church pastor offered forgiveness. In regards to the murder of Heather, Gail and Don, I'm compelled to seek justice. However, I encourage her to seek my offer of forgiveness for harm done to me. My prayer for her is that she use her time in jail wisely. Now I am no longer Erin Patterson's victim. She has become the victim of my kindness. 7 victim impact statements were read to the court, including from Ruth Dubois, the daughter of Heather and Ian Wilkinson. It is difficult to comprehend how someone could spend months planning this out. At every step of the way, she chose to follow through. Patterson's estranged husband Simon was not present, his statement instead read by a relative. He spoke of his 2 children being robbed of hope for the kind of relationship with their mother that every child naturally yearns for. He also criticised the intense media attention on the case, branding the actions by some outlets as deplorable. The court then heard from both legal teams about the conditions of Patterson's incarceration. She's been held in a maximum security prison since June last year, with approval to speak with just one other prisoner. The defence arguing for a non-parole period, while the prosecution says she should face a maximum penalty for the murder charges. Tysok Husey, SBS World News. Three rapid-fire questions concluded Prosecutor Nanette Rogers' 5-day cross-examination of Erin Patterson. You deliberately sourced death cap mushrooms in 2023. Agree or disagree? Disagree. You deliberately included them in the beef Wellingtons you served to Don Patterson, Gail Patterson, Ian Wilkinson and Heather Wilkinson. Disagree. And you did so intending to kill them. Agree or disagree? Disagree. Patterson had earlier been questioned about driving her son to a flying lesson the day after the 2023 fatal lunch when she claimed to have diarrhoea. In pre-recorded evidence, her son said they didn't stop once during the trip, but Patterson later contradicted that, saying she did have to pull over to go to the toilet. He didn't recall you stopping in the bushes on the side of the road because it did not happen. Disagree. This is another lie you've told this jury to try and explain how you managed this trip. Disagree. In Patterson's re-examination, the defence returned to evidence about thousands of messages between Patterson and her estranged husband Simon. It was suggested to you in those 4,000 pages there's not a single message about you picking or eating wild mushrooms. How often did you inform Simon Patterson how you were preparing your own meals? Almost never. Why was that? I don't think we ever talked about what we were eating. It just wasn't relevant or interesting to either of us. Patterson broke down in the witness box when her lawyer asked about her insistence on taking her son to flying lessons despite claiming to be sick. She told the court he was passionate about the pursuit, and with many earlier lessons already cancelled, she didn't want to disappoint him. Patterson was the final witness in the trial, which has now spanned 7 weeks. Tysok Husey, SBS World News.
Erin Patterson arrives at Victoria's Supreme Court to learn her fate. Justice Christopher Beale delivering his sentence.
For the attempted murder of Ian Wilkinson, I sentence you to 25 years imprisonment. For the murder of Heather Wilkinson, I sentence you to life imprisonment. For the murder of Gail Patterson, I sentence you to life imprisonment. For the murder of Don Patterson, I sentence you to life imprisonment.
There was no reaction from Patterson as she stood in the dock. Outside court, sole survivor of the deadly lunch, Ian Wilkinson, gave his thanks to those who helped convict her, including homicide squad detectives.
They made a professional, efficient and effective investigation into what happened at the lunch. They brought to light the truth of what happened with the death of 3 good people.
50-year-old Patterson will be in her 80s before she's eligible to apply for parole.
Your offending, which resulted in the death of 3 people and near death of another, involved substantial premeditation when you unusually invited Simon, his parents and his aunt and uncle to a lunch without the children to discuss your non-existent medical issues. You did so with the intention of killing them all.
Patterson invited her former in-laws Don and Gail Patterson and Gail's sister and her husband Ian Wilkinson to the fateful lunch in July 2023 at her Gippsland home, serving them individual parcels of beef Wellington laced with death cap mushrooms. Despite continuing to maintain her innocence, she was found guilty in July after a 10-week trial.
There is, of course, great anger at the callousness of your actions. Ian Wilkinson's sister, Dorothy Dicker, questions, quote, how anyone could sit there and watch those 4 kind and caring people eat that meal. Your failure to exhibit any remorse pours salt into all the victims' wounds.
In considering the many victim impact statements, Justice Beale described her crime as falling in the worst category of offending for murder and attempted murder, with her actions having an impact not just on her direct victims, but also on at least 4 generations of the Patterson and Wilkinson families. Justice Beale spared Patterson the harsher sentence of life without parole because for the foreseeable future she's likely to be spending most of her time in prison in solitary confinement for her own protection, given the intense media attention the case has attracted. People were lined up outside the Supreme Court from early this morning to get a seat inside the courtroom.
I knew the 3 that were killed, so I've got a connection there and just want to see it through to finale.
I just want to see justice. That's why I'm here today.
Patterson's legal team remaining silent about the prospect of an appeal.
Has Erin indicated whether she wants to appeal?
Patterson's only supporter throughout the trial also leaving without comment. As both families now try to move on, a simple request from Ian Wilkinson.
Please respect our privacy as we continue to grieve and heal.
Some closure after more than 2 years of tragedy and heartache. Gloria Kleisch, SBS World News.
Obviously, we've got concerns in relation to these mushrooms and where they've come from. Okay. Is that something you've done in the past, foraging for the mushrooms or anything like that? Never?
No.
Right. Do you preserve foods or anything like that?
No.
Have you ever dehydrated food or anything like that? Kitchen far left bottom drawer, instruction manual for a sunbeam, food lab, electronic dehydrator. What's that in relation to that? Do you know anything about a dehydrator in your house? Okay. Do you own a dehydrator?
No.
No. Okay.
I've got manuals of lots of stuff I've collected over the years. I've had all sorts of appliances and I just keep them all in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When did you own a dehydrator?
I've had one years ago.
Okay. What did you use that for?
Like when I first got the Thermomix, I got really excited about like making everything from scratch, you know, and I did a lot of, you know, like everything from scratch ingredients, and I did a lot of that. So I could have had something like that.
Okay.
But,
Kitchen bench located against the wall. Recipe tin eats book. Okay, I'm not sure. Again,
that's that recipe book.
That's that same book that we, the Wellington recipe come out of? Yeah.
Good morning. I'll not be taking any questions or making any further comments apart from this statement. My purpose here today is to give some well-earned thanks. Firstly, to Victoria Police, in particular the Homicide Squad and the team led by Detective Stephen Eppingstall. They made a professional, efficient and effective investigation into what happened at the lunch. They brought to light the truth of what happened with the death of 3 good people. We're grateful for their skills that brought this truth to light. And I'm also very grateful for the kindness and compassion they showed us, me and my family, throughout the long process that has brought us to this day. They've done a wonderful job. I'd like to extend gratitude too to the team from the Office of Public Prosecutions, led by Senior Counsel Nanette Rogers. The court processes are a little bewildering to lay people like me, and we're grateful for their expertise, their hard work and their perseverance that has secured this conviction. I'd also like to commend them for their kindness and compassion showed to us throughout this long process. They have also done a wonderful job. We're also grateful for the staff of the various public health services that played an important role in dealing with the aftermath of the lunch. There are so many services and agencies and people involved that I can't start naming names. But please, each one, accept my sincere gratitude for the part that you have played in this process. We're thankful that when things go wrong, there are good people and services and systems available to help us recover. I'd like to encourage all those involved to keep turning up and serving others. Our lives and the life of our community depends on the kindness of others. I'd like to encourage everybody to be kind to each other. Finally, I want to say thank you to the many people from across Australia and around the world who, through their prayers and messages of support, have encouraged us. I thank the people of the Leongatha and Currumbara communities in particular. Your thoughtfulness and care has been a great encouragement to us. That's all I wish to say for now. Please respect our privacy as we continue to grieve and heal. Thank you for listening. I hope you all have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Accused triple murderer Erin Patterson took to the witness stand, in her own words, giving evidence about a life forever changed. Her defence lawyer asking his client what her family home in Leongatha, where the deadly lunch in July 2023 was held, meant to her. Patterson telling the court, "I saw it as the final house, meaning I wanted it to be a house where the children grow up, where they could come back and stay, and I'd grow old there." The prosecution alleges Patterson deliberately poisoned 4 relatives of her estranged husband Simon by serving them a beef Wellington meal which contained death cap mushrooms. Her in-laws Don and Gail's sister Heather Wilkinson all died in hospital days after consuming the lunch. The lone survivor in attendance, Ian Wilkinson, in the courtroom today as Patterson spoke about how she believed her separation with husband Simon had created a rift with the Patterson family. The 50-year-old telling the court, "I had come to have concerns that Simon was not wanting me to be involved too much in the family anymore." Patterson has pleaded not guilty to all charges, maintaining the deaths were a terrible accident. She also shared details about how she felt about herself in the early part of 2023, telling the courtroom how she had been fighting a battle with low self-esteem due to concerns about her weight. She also spoke about her relationship with her estranged husband. They met when they were both working for Monash City Council in 2004. Simon converted her to Christianity, but following the birth of their son in 2009, she told the court they had separated several times. "We just couldn't communicate well when we disagreed about something." Patterson at times became emotional, her evidence striking a deeply personal tone in a trial that, to this point, has been dominated by expert evidence. She'll return to the witness stand tomorrow. Tom Stainer, SBS World News.
This is Erin Patterson at Leongatha Hospital on the Monday morning after the deadly lunch. Hospital staff trying to convince her to stay, fearing she had also been exposed to lethal doses of death cap mushrooms. But against medical advice, she left.
I have a concern regarding a patient that presented here earlier but has left the building and is potentially exposed to a fatal toxin from mushroom poisoning.
What's her name?
So the last name is Patterson, Patterson.
First name?
Erin, Erin.
The Supreme Court also released images of the leftover beef Wellington police retrieved from a rubbish bin at her home. They were tested by several experts. While death cap mushrooms weren't found inside the leftovers, traces of the deadly toxin were present. The dehydrator Patterson used to dry the mushrooms seen here. The trial heard she had also told online friends that she would blitz mushrooms and put them into everything. For the families of victims Don and Gail Patterson and Heather Wilkinson and sole survivor husband Ian Wilkinson, it's now a time for them to heal and move on. Outside the Currumbara Church, where Ian Wilkinson is pastor, messages of support. The only connection to the town of Morwell was for the trial being held here. The media pack has now left and the hustle and bustle of the past 10 weeks of proceedings has dissipated, leaving many locals with mixed feelings about the impact of the unprecedented spotlight. In May 2024, visitor spending in Morwell was nearly $5.9 million. This year it rose to more than $6.2 million. And in nearby Terralgan for the same period, there was an increase in spending of $2.56 million. Council attributing it to the increased foot traffic from the trial.
And we didn't want that connotation coming onto Morwell. We're facing enough battles with the closing of the coal-fired power industry. Look, for local accommodation, for local restaurants and clubs, it's been really, really good. It's been a real bonus.
But also a sense of great sadness at the human tragedy that sparked the high-profile trial.
Given the circumstances, they're obviously not very good, but I think it's been good engagement for the community and the town.
The impact from this trial far-reaching and sometimes unexpected. Gloria Kleisch, SBS World News.
Good evening. For 2 years, the mystery of what happened at Erin Patterson's dining table has not only fixated Australia, but audiences around the world. And this afternoon, in a tiny town in regional Victoria, the infamous mushroom cook finally learned her fate. After a 9-week trial, the 50-year-old has now been found guilty of murdering 3 relatives of her estranged husband and attempting to kill another. Our reporter Gloria Kleisch has been following proceedings from the very beginning. She joins us now from Morwell. Good evening, Gloria. You were in court for this verdict. What happened?
That's right, Janice. So we received an email this afternoon, a bit before lunchtime, just telling us that the jurors had finally reached a verdict. You could see members of the media, as well as some of those court watchers who have been here since the beginning of the trial, rush over to the court. Once we waited and then we got inside the courtroom, it filled rather quickly, mainly with members of the media, police officers, the lawyers. There weren't any family members inside the court, including the sole survivor, Ian Wilkinson. He wasn't present. Erin Patterson was then also led into the courtroom. She was flanked by 2 prison guards. Once the jurors came into the courtroom, the foreperson then stood up and was asked about each of the charges. The first charge they were asked about was the charge of attempted murder against Ian Wilkinson, and the foreperson said guilty. Then following that, each of the other charges were read out for Gail and Don Patterson as well as Heather Wilkinson. All guilty on those 3 counts. Erin Patterson sat there. She glanced over at the jurors a few times while this was happening, but there wasn't much emotion from her. She was quite motionless during this. She blinked a lot during the process, but other than that, we didn't get any indication as to what she may have been feeling or thinking at the time. This has been a very long trial. As you've mentioned, it lasted 9 weeks. We're actually into our 11th week because it did take jurors 6 days to reach their verdicts. Let's take a bit of a look at how this trial has played out. In the frenzy outside this Gippsland court, there was no comment from Erin Patterson's defence team after the jury found her guilty on all 4 charges.
Are you expecting to appeal, Mr Mandy?
Her supporters also leaving the court to be surrounded by a crowded media pack.
I'm saddened, and it is what it is.
The Patterson and Wilkinson families opting not to respond publicly to the verdict. Victorian police say their thoughts are with them at this time.
I think it's very important that we remember that we've had 3 people. 3 people have died, and we've had a person that nearly died and was seriously injured.
After more than 50 witnesses and 9 weeks of evidence, the verdict was finally delivered. The case against Patterson centred around a lunch when she served individual beef Wellingtons containing death cap mushrooms. The defence arguing the mushrooms made it into the meal accidentally, but the prosecution convinced the jury it was deliberate and done with murderous intent. The court heard she was angry with her in-laws because they wouldn't intervene in a dispute she was having with Simon Patterson over child support. During the trial, the court was shown messages sent to Facebook friends venting about the family. The prosecution was successful in setting out her actions leading up to the lunch in July 2023 and after the meal for the jury as evidence of her guilt. Her phone is pinged lock after a death cap mushroom sighting was posted on the citizen science website iNaturalist. That same day, she bought a food dehydrator, with the court shown photos of the dehydrator with dried mushrooms. Her phone was again pinged near Loch and Outram in South Gippsland, where death-capped mushrooms had been spotted. She invites Don and Gail, along with Heather and Ian at church in Currumbara, to the lunch, as well as Simon. About a week later, she starts shopping for the items for the lunch. Simon declines the invitation via text. She has her guests over for the lunch using a fake cancer diagnosis to get them there. That evening, the guests become ill. All the guests end up in hospital. Gail and Heather die, Don dies, and police execute a warrant at Patterson's Leongatha home. Ian Wilkinson is discharged and able to return home. The court heard Patterson was found to have deviated from the Recipe Tin Eats Beef Wellington recipe by making individual parcels instead of a single log, so she would not eat the mushrooms. She was accused of faking her own illness and initially refusing treatment in hospital, despite being told she would have been exposed to death-capped mushrooms. After spending some time in hospital following her discharge, she dropped her children at school. In images released by the court today, she can be seen later that day on CCTV at the Coonawarra transfer station dumping her food dehydrator, an appliance she said she never owned during her police interview. Her defence claimed her actions after the lunch were done out of panic, telling the jury herself during her nearly 8 days in the witness box it was a knee-jerk response and she panicked when she realised a meal she cooked had made people sick.
So, Gloria, an incredible turn of events. Now we had a verdict. What happens next?
So, Janice, basically her defence team has 28 days to appeal this decision. Patterson will also face a pre-sentencing hearing at a later stage, but for now she has been taken back to Melbourne and she could face life in prison.
Thanks so much. Our reporter Gloria Kalash updating us from Morwell in Victoria. Texan authorities are warning residents to expect the death toll from catastrophic flooding in the state to rise in the coming days, with at least 82 now confirmed dead. 41 people remain missing as one of the largest search and rescue operations in the state's recent history is moving towards a recovery phase.
They're searching on helicopters, wading in boats and sifting through the water with their hands before the gravity of the search for survivors becomes too much. Volunteers have come from far and wide to help, some bringing dogs, others on horseback.
Those babies. If it was my babies, I'd want somebody looking, so that's why I'm here.
Those babies, a group of girls at a summer camp near the Guadalupe River, when in the darkness of the night, a flood came through their cabins.
I wake up in the morning around 4 a.m. maybe, and I just hear screaming coming out from outside.
Almost 3 days later, 11 girls remain missing, as well as a counsellor at the camp.
We will remain 100% dedicated, searching for every single one of the children.
Dozens are missing, but authorities simply don't know how many people they're looking for. Many had been camping on the banks of the Guadalupe River for 4th of July celebrations. It's feared some could have been swept away.
Hearing people scream, kids screaming, asking for help. Cars were floating away with the lights on. You could see the lights and you can hear honking.
This is how quickly floodwaters rose along the Liano River in Kingsland on Friday. In just half an hour, rescue crews moving further up to avoid its path. Christina Wilson was at home with her children and fiancé when water flooded the home. Her fiancé punched a window to get the children out, cutting his arm and bleeding out as calls to 911 went unanswered.
He looked at me and the kids and my mother-in-law and he was like, sorry, I'm not going to make it. I love y'all.
Survivors are questioning the timing and manner of emergency warnings and why some didn't get any at all. The US President too, who said he might visit the region on Friday, batting away questions about budget cutbacks to the National Weather Service.
That was really the Biden setup. That was not our setup, but I wouldn't blame Biden for it either. I would just say this is a 100-year catastrophe.
More storms are expected into Tuesday, which could hamper rescue teams already facing venomous snakes as they sift through mud and debris. And for survivors, more potentially life-threatening flooding in places already soaked. Rashida Yousafzai, SBS World News.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has voiced hope that tomorrow's meeting with US President Donald Trump could help to secure a ceasefire agreement with Hamas in Gaza. Mr Netanyahu is on his way to Washington for his third visit to the White House since Donald Trump returned to power nearly 6 months ago. The latest round of indirect ceasefire talks have ended without a breakthrough.
Heading for the kind of presidential encounter that world leaders now approach with hope and caution. Prime Minister Netanyahu was asked by Donald Trump not to attack Iran pending ceasefire talks, but then was apparently forgiven for attacking the country anyway.
מעולם לא היה לנו ידיד כזה בבית הלבן, וההתגייסות המשותפת שלנו הביאה ניצחון כביר על האויב המשותף שלנו, איראן.
President Trump now optimistic over Gaza.
I think there's a good chance we have a deal with Hamas during the coming week.
In Doha, another round of indirect negotiations involving Qatar, Egypt and the US failed to secure a deal to bring back the 20 living and 30 dead Israeli hostages remaining.
שלחתי צוות למשא ומתן עם הנחיות ברורות, ואני חושב שהשיחה עם הנשיא טראמפ יכולה בהחלט לעזור לקדם את התוצאה הזאת שכולנו מייחלים.
Some analysts now see cause for hope, despite some coalition hardliners opposing a truce with Hamas.
The real question is whether the bolstering of Prime Minister Netanyahu's popularity as a result of the 12-day war with Iran has made it possible for him to imagine doing some things with Gaza that he wouldn't have done beforehand, agreeing first to a 60-day ceasefire, agreeing possibly even to a permanent ceasefire.
As blasts were heard and heavy smoke seen over Gaza, reports suggest Israel has indeed agreed to an initial 60-day pause. A permanent ceasefire, something Hamas has always demanded, to be discussed during this period. Mr Netanyahu says Hamas has requested unacceptable changes, though some media reports say the group's conditions are largely unaltered. They reportedly include the IDF withdrawing to their lines prior to the March ceasefire collapsing, and far more aid from groups other than the controversial Israeli and US-backed Gaza Health Foundation. Israel has ordered more evacuations in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza, warning of heavy bombardment to come. The Israeli government's policy of enlisting previously exempt ultra-Orthodox Israelis has been contentious. Relatively few yeshiva students have either been drafted or have enlisted, despite last June's Supreme Court ruling. Now the IDF says it will summons 54,000 deemed as having high potential for combat and support roles. Raina Sarumpayat, SBS World News.
Pressure has ramped up for countries to create trade deals with the US president, with President Donald Trump warning some trading partners will begin receiving letters tomorrow notifying them of higher tariff rates. That's despite a 90-day tariff deadline that was due to expire in 2 days. That's now been pushed back for another 3 weeks.
He called it
Liberation Day.
Donald Trump in April imposed sweeping tariffs on every country, a 10% base for some and additional taxes on others. But as chaos erupted across global markets, he hit pause on those levies higher than 10%, giving trading partners 90 days to strike a deal or risk steep tariffs by July 9. But as that 90-day deadline was due to end on Wednesday, another extension.
President Trump's going to be sending letters to some of our trading partners saying that if you don't move things along, then on August 1st, you will boomerang back to your April 2nd tariff level.
The president, though, with conflicting messaging.
I think we'll have most countries done by July 9th, yeah. Either a letter or a deal.
Beside him, his Commerce Secretary.
tariffs go into effect August 1st, but the president is setting the rates and the deals right now.
Trump told Time magazine in late April that 200 deals were already made, but only 3 have been announced. A 20% tariff on Vietnam's imported goods, a big drop from the 46% threatened in April, a 55% tax on China's goods, down from the initial 145%, and the UK will maintain a 10% levy on most of its imports. Amid the global uncertainty, concerns now closer to home.
Take over, Elon, yes, take over.
Today, Trump facing a challenge from his former first buddy. Elon Musk says he's formed a new conservative political party. The president said the world's richest man has gone, quote, completely off the rails.
I think it's ridiculous to start a third party. We have a tremendous success with the Republican Party.
Musk calling it the America Party, launched in response to Trump's massive tax cut and spending bill, which Musk believes could bankrupt the nation. Rayanne Tamer, SBS World News.
Good evening. It's the murder case that captured global attention. And today the focus was again on a Victorian court for the sentencing of Erin Patterson. In a rare move, the proceedings were broadcast live. And for just over 45 minutes, Justice Christopher Beale outlined the gravity of her offences before sentencing the convicted killer to life in prison, with a non-parole period of 33 years. Meaning the earliest Patterson could be out of jail will be when she's aged in her 80s.
Erin Patterson arrives at Victoria's Supreme Court to learn her fate. Justice Christopher Beale delivering his sentence.
For the attempted murder of Ian Wilkinson, I sentence you to 25 years imprisonment. For the murder of Heather Wilkinson, I sentence you to life imprisonment. For the murder of Gail Patterson, I sentence you to life imprisonment. For the murder of Don Patterson, I sentence you to life imprisonment.
There was no reaction from Patterson as she stood in the dock. Outside court, sole survivor of the deadly lunch, Ian Wilkinson, gave his thanks to those who helped convict her, including homicide squad detectives.
They made a professional, efficient and effective investigation into what happened at the lunch. They brought to light the truth of what happened with the death of 3 good people.
50-year-old Patterson will be in her 80s before she's eligible to apply for parole.
Your offending, which resulted in the death of 3 people and near death of another, involved substantial premeditation when you unusually invited Simon, his parents and his aunt and uncle to a lunch without the children to discuss your non-existent medical issues. You did so with the intention of killing them all.
Patterson invited her former in-laws Don and Gail Patterson and Gail's sister and her husband Ian Wilkinson to the fateful lunch in July 2023 at her Gippsland home, serving them individual parcels of beef Wellington laced with death cap mushrooms. Despite continuing to maintain her innocence, she was found guilty in July after a 10-week trial.
There is, of course, great anger at the callousness of your actions. Ian Wilkinson's sister, Dorothy Dicker, questions, quote, how anyone could sit there and watch those 4 kind and caring people eat that meal. Your failure to exhibit any remorse pours salt into all the victims' wounds.
In considering the many victim impact statements, Justice Beale described her crime as falling in the worst category of offending for murder and attempted murder, with her actions having an impact not just on her direct victims, but also on at least 4 generations of the Patterson and Wilkinson families. Justice Beale spared Patterson the harsher sentence of life without parole because for the foreseeable future she's likely to be spending most of her time in prison in solitary confinement for her own protection, given the intense media attention the case has attracted. People were lined up outside the Supreme Court from early this morning to get a seat inside the courtroom.
I knew the 3 that were killed, so I've got a connection there and just want to see it through to finale.
I just want to see justice. That's why I'm here today.
Patterson's legal team remaining silent about the prospect of an appeal.
Has Erin indicated whether she wants to appeal?
Patterson's only supporter throughout the trial also leaving without comment. As both families now try to move on, a simple request from Ian Wilkinson.
Please respect our privacy as we continue to grieve and heal.
Some closure after more than 2 years of tragedy and heartache. Gloria Kleisch, SBS World News.
An increasingly frustrated Donald Trump says he's ready to move to the second state of sanctions against Russia after Moscow launched its largest drone and missile attack on Ukraine so far in the war. The attack damaged the Cabinet of Ministers building in the heart of the heavily guarded capital Kyiv, among others, as cities across Ukraine came under heavy assault. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for a broad response from its allies, saying that Vladimir Putin is not interested in negotiation.
Russian drones leaving their mark on Kyiv's skyline. Among the targets, for the first time, a government building right in the centre of the administrative district. Surveying the damage within, Ukraine's Prime Minister took to social media with this message.
І все виглядало таким чином, що Росія не готова і не прагне миру, не готова до перемовин. Тому у мене заклик до наших партнерів. Допоможіть нам закрити небо, давайте підсилимо санкції проти Росії.
Ukraine's president with a similar assessment.
І важливо, що сьогодні є.
It is important that today we saw a broad response from our partners to this strike. Clearly, Russia is trying to inflict pain on Ukraine. With even more brazen attacks, this is a clear sign that Putin is testing the world, whether they will accept or tolerate this.
Showing some impatience at the news out of Kyiv, Donald Trump, while talking of a second phase of sanctions against Moscow, also intent on getting his European allies on the same page.
Well, we're going to see. I mean, we have some very interesting discussions. You know, certain European leaders are coming over to our country on Monday or Tuesday, and individually. And I think we're going to get that settled. I think we're going to get it settled. We have to.
His Treasury Secretary giving the clearest indication yet of Washington's Ukraine strategy.
If the U.S. and the EU can come in, do more sanctions, secondary tariffs on the countries that buy Russian oil, the Russian economy will be in full collapse, and that will bring President Putin to the table.
The Trump administration has imposed 50% tariffs on India, citing its continued purchases of Russian oil. Washington looking to impose secondary sanctions on other countries as well. But despite that, Mr. Trump's threats to punish Russia have so far gone nowhere. Ukraine's Air Force saying that Russia launched a total of 805 exploding drones and 13 cruise and ballistic missiles across the country in this latest volley. With peace attempts floundering, a growing sense of pessimism in Ukraine as attempts to end the war appear to be going round in circles. Edmund Roy, SBS World News.
Hamas says it's, quote, ready to immediately sit at the negotiating table to discuss the release of all prisoners to end the war in Gaza. That development after US President Donald Trump issued what he called his last warning to the Palestinian militant group to accept a deal. It follows a weekend that saw more bloodshed in Gaza and also a rare ruling by Israel's top court against the government's actions during the war.
Moments after the Israeli military ordered an evacuation. A 7-storey building in Gaza City flattened by an Israeli airstrike. The third high-rise to be destroyed in as many days. Israel says the building was being used by Hamas. Palestinians say it was a residential block sheltering displaced families.
Destruction, what happened? Ruined homes, the end of the world, the end of life.
Dozens more bodies arrived at the morgue at Shifa Hospital after a deadly weekend in Gaza City. The Israeli military releasing this footage overnight said to show the destruction of an underground route in northern Gaza. the Israeli Prime Minister unflinching as he pushes forward with the military operation.
Our effort in Gaza on the last strongholds, actually the last important stronghold, Gaza City, is a part of our effort to complete the crushing of the Iranian Axis's chokehold.
Overnight, Israel coming under attack from Yemen, with Iran-backed Houthi rebels claiming responsibility for a drone strike which temporarily closed the Ramon airport near the Red Sea city of Eilat. The group says it's acting in solidarity with Palestinians. Hamas says it's ready to discuss the release of all captives and end the war. The US president believes a deal is close.
I think we're going to have a deal on Gaza very soon. It's a hell of a problem.
In Jerusalem, Israel's top court has ruled that the government is not giving thousands of Palestinians held in Israeli security prisons enough food to, quote, ensure a basic level of existence. During the last 23 months of war between Israel and Hamas, it's been highly rare for the Israeli judiciary to take issue with the government's actions. Earlier this year, 17-year-old Walid Ahmad, who had been held for 6 months in an Israeli prison without being charged, died. Starvation, the likely leading cause, according to an Israeli doctor who observed the autopsy. The Israeli National Security Minister, who oversees the prison system, has lashed out at Sunday's court ruling. Last year, he explained that he had degraded the conditions of security prisoners to the bare minimum required by Israeli law and says that will remain unchanged. Virginia Langeberg, SBS World News.
At least 4 people have been killed in a shooting on the outskirts of Jerusalem. Local media is reporting that 2 gunmen boarded a bus at Ramot Junction and opened fire. At least 15 people have been injured. Israeli police say they're treating the incident as a suspected terror attack. They say 2 gunmen were neutralised at the scene. Boko Haram militants have killed more than 60 people in a nighttime assault on a northeastern Nigerian town, according to authorities. Dozens of houses were burnt and over 100 people were forced to flee. The state's governor has raised fears that the Nigerian army wasn't able to contain the outbreak of violence in the area. And tropical storm Tapa has strengthened into a typhoon as it made landfall in South China's Guangdong province, bringing winds of over 100 kilometres an hour and waves of over 3 metres. In Yangjiang City, emergency response levels were raised late yesterday and more than 60,000 people have been evacuated. Tapa is the 16th typhoon this year. Well, the race to be Japan's Prime Minister is quickly taking shape. A former Foreign Minister, Toshimitsu Motegi, is the first from the ruling party to indicate his candidacy. Yesterday, Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba announced he was stepping down. He'd overseen 2 election losses that loosened his ruling Liberal Democratic Party's grip on power.
One of the world's most stable democracies now facing deep political uncertainty. So news of Shigeru Ishiba's exit brought both relief and concern to Tokyo's streets.
I hope the next leader can build better communication with other leaders and improve Japan's standing in the world.
I'd hope for politics that are broad and inclusive, benefiting a wide range of people, not just a specific inner circle.
Having resisted internal party calls to resign, Prime Minister Ishiba finally took responsibility for 2 crushing parliamentary election defeats. Publicly, he linked the timing to last week's deal securing an easing in US tariffs.
米国関税措置に関する交渉に一つの区切りがついた今こそがそのしかるべきタイミングであるとこのように考え
His successor will also need to manage an increasingly assertive China. While at home, there's persistent inflation and perceptions the LDP, dominant since the Second World War, is out of touch with younger urban voters. Already, former Foreign Minister Toshimitsu Motegi has signalled he's up to the job. But analysts see LDP veteran Sanae Takeichi as a frontrunner. Today's share market surge and falling yen are seen as early bets on a first female Prime Minister who it's thought may boost government spending. And then there's Shinjiro Koizumi, 44-year-old son of former leader Junichiro. As Agriculture Minister, he's had the hot-button task of curbing soaring rice prices.
It will really be a question of whether or not the very hard conservative part of the party that supports Takaichi will be able to get enough support to take on the more moderate conservatives who support Koizumi.
Now that the LDP under Mr Ishiba's watch has fallen into minority in both houses of parliament, his successor as party president is no guarantee for the country's top job. Once voting transfers to parliament, there's even a slim chance an opposition leader could win out. Raina Sarampayat, SBS World News.
A New Zealand man who disappeared into remote bush with his 3 children in 2021 has been shot dead by police. He was shot during a robbery in the town of Poipoi. It's where Tom Phillips had been sighted before. Late this afternoon, police found 2 of his children who were still missing.
A tragic conclusion to a 4-year saga. The manhunt for New Zealand fugitive Tom Phillips has come to an end after an early morning shootout with police.
This is devastating news for Tom Phillips' family as well, and is the outcome that nobody wanted.
Police were responding to a robbery in progress at a farm supply store. An officer saw a man and a child on a quad bike and began to pursue them.
Additional staff were called out and responded to that location. Our officer has been struck in the head. He's immediately fallen to the ground and taken cover.
A second patrol officer arrived at the scene and shot Phillips dead.
The formal identification of this male is yet to take place, but we believe him to be Tom Phillips. A second person was located at the scene, and multiple firearms were located on and around the quad bike.
The child with Phillips during the shootout was taken into custody, while the other 2 remained missing. They were later found after an extensive bush search. In December 2021, Phillips fled from his home in Marakopa with the now 9-year-old Ember, 10-year-old Maverick and 12-year-old Jada.
I can confirm that the children are well and uninjured, and they will be taken to a location this evening for medical checks.
Spending the next 4 years hidden in the dense Waikato bush, spotted only a few times. Those sightings included an alleged bank robbery in May 2023 and footage caught by pig hunters in October 2024. The children's mother telling local media, while saddened by the incident, she's deeply relieved the ordeal has come to an end.
Today's outcome is not the one that we wanted. Our thoughts are with all of those involved, and especially our injured colleague who still remains in surgery in Waikato Hospital.
And the family can reunite after 4 years apart. Asha Abdi, SBS World News.
Gail and Don Patterson's daughter fought back tears as she sat in the witness box. Anna Terrington telling the jury despite the separation of Simon and Erin, there was no animosity between Erin and her parents. She said she spoke with her mother after the lunch in July 2023. I called to ask how the lunch went. Mum said it went well. Did she say what they ate? Yes, she said they had beef Wellington and she had too much, so Dad finished it off. The jury also heard from Ian and Heather Wilkinson's daughter, Ruth Dubois. When asked about her relationship with Patterson, she said while they knew each other, she was more of an acquaintance. Ms Dubois told the jury about her reaction when her mother, Heather, told her they were invited to Patterson's house for lunch. She said that at church the previous weekend she was talking with Gail after the service and Erin had come to them and said, just the 2 I was looking for, and invited them to lunch. We were surprised as that had never happened before. Erin Patterson's former brother-in-law told the court his brother Simon and Erin always appeared amicable and respectful of each other, but following the separation their conversations were more mechanical. During cross-examination, Matthew Patterson was asked about a meeting he had with Erin in 2021 to discuss a possible reconciliation with Simon. Erin expressed to you that she was sad the relationship couldn't move forward. Yes. And that they both wanted to reconcile, but only if Simon would get marriage counselling. Some sort of counselling. She was seeking your advice about how to get him to do that. Yes. The court was played a phone call from Dr. Chris Webster from the Leongatha Hospital made to police after Erin refused treatment and discharged herself. Dr. Webster was treating Ian and Heather Wilkinson, and when it became clear the couple had likely suffered from death cap mushroom poisoning, he urged Erin to stay for observation and treatment, knowing she had eaten the same meal. 50-year-old Patterson has pleaded not guilty to all the charges against her. The trial continues. Gloria Kleisch, SBS World News.
I will conclude my account of key aspects of the victim impact statements with what Don and Gail's son Matthew had to say about your betrayal of trust. Quote, Erin was embraced as part of the Patterson family. She was welcome and treated with genuine love and respect in a way she did not appear to experience from her own family. Her actions represent a profound and devastating betrayal of the trust and love extended to her. Having regard to the aggravating circumstances of your offending and the victim impact statements, I have no hesitation in finding that your offending falls into the worst category for the offences of murder and attempted murder. As the case law makes clear, the fact that it is possible to imagine even worse instances of such offences does not refute that categorisation. The gravity of your offending warrants the imposition of the maximum penalties for your crimes. For the attempted murder of Ian Wilkinson, I sentence you to 25 years imprisonment. For the murder of Heather Wilkinson, I sentence you to life imprisonment. For the murder of Gail Patterson, I sentence you to life imprisonment. For the murder of Don Patterson, I sentence you to life imprisonment. All sentences are to be served concurrently. The total effective sentence is life imprisonment, and I fix a non-parole period of 33 years. I declare that you have served 676 days by way of pre-sentence detention. Finally, and by consent, I make the disposal order sought by the prosecution. Would you please remove Ms. Patterson?
I'm a courtroom artist and this is my drawing. I was very lucky. They gave me front and centre seat. So I had a great view of Erin and I watched her speak for about 20 minutes, which meant that I had realistically about 10 minutes to draw her. I made a decision not to put in her microphone actually and the background. I just wanted to focus on her. She was so distressed this day in court. She looked so curmudgeoned the whole time and I was thinking, do I give her the frown that I am seeing? And I kind of concluded that yes, that was the right thing to do. And you don't cheat the details. That's sort of like what I think. You have to be as honest as you can.
I don't think many people would like clock that it's digital art.
That's good. That makes me happy. I do quite high profile cases. I recently did Tony Mockbell's case, Perry Karumbaris. So I initially got called the first day Erin appeared in court. She walked out for 2 minutes. I had to draw her. Erin did look at me in that initial trial quite a bit. This is prior to the frenetic energy around the case. Someone said to me there hadn't been so much media attention since the Dingo baby courtroom appearances. It's wild. It's 2 hours of my life has become the thing that I am now associated with, which is so weird. People are doing their own versions of it and filming it, and I'm getting fan DMs. I really think it's just captured the imagination of Australian true crime fans and just people who are interested in like the culture of crime as well. So it's been a really interesting place being able to be a voyeur on the peanut gallery.
I'm here in the town of Morwell, which is about 2 hours from Melbourne, and it's a town that has captured
captured the world's attention because of the trial of accused triple murderer Erin Patterson. She's charged with murdering 3 of her estranged husband's relatives. They are Don and Gail Patterson, as well as Gail's sister Heather Wilkinson. She's also charged with the attempted murder of Ian Wilkinson. It follows a lunch at her Gippsland home in July 2023 where she served beef Wellingtons containing death cap mushrooms. Patterson maintains it was a tragic accident. The trial has gone on now for nearly 10 weeks. It's heard from up to 50 witnesses, including from experts, relatives of those who died, as well as the sole survivor, Ian Wilkinson. Erin Patterson herself also took to the witness box, where she was called as the only witness for the defence. She was in there for up to 8 days, where she was also cross-examined by the prosecution. The prosecution case is that she deliberately poisoned her relatives by dehydrating mushrooms and putting them in the meal. The defence says that her actions following that fatal lunch were because she panicked when she realised that the meal that she'd cooked had made her relatives sick. It'll now be up to the jurors to decide, was it deliberate or was it a tragic accident? Once Justice Christopher Beale finishes his directions to the jury, they'll be sequestered and then they'll have to come back with a unanimous verdict.